Only 0.004% of men in the US have six-pack abs. So if it's just a case of following that golden rule of calories in versus calories out, why do so many people fail on their quest to get in shape? In this video, I'll rank the 5 extreme methods from some of the best known lean physiques, breaking down each one to figure out exactly which one is worth our time and what's not, so you can get lean without the gym bro routine. So I'm assuming that you've got the basics down, and you want to see if there's a few tactics that can take you to the next level. Now, we're going to rank all of these strategies based on 3 key rules. 1. How strong is the evidence of this actually working? 2. How easy is it to implement? And 3. How intense is this? Basically, are we going to have the fortitude to stay consistent with it? So first up, we've got that phenomenon that's taking over the fitness world, freezing your nuts off every morning. We've all seen athletes jumping in an ice bath to recover after a hard day's training, but it was Wim Hof that really brought cold exposure to the mainstream via the biohacking world. And then influential people like Joe Rogan blew it up to where it is today. But can cold exposure help us get lean by ramping up our metabolism? Let's see what everyone's favorite Stanford doctor has to say. Take it away, Professor Andrew Huberman.
Showed was that if people get 11 minutes of deliberate cold exposure per week total, this is divided up into sessions of 1 to 3 minutes or 4 minutes even. So it's not 11 minutes all at once. They fundamentally change the amount of brown fat that they have, which means they fundamentally change the number of mitochondria in the brown fat, which means they fundamentally change their thermogenic properties of their body, increase their metabolism.
So Huberman is stating that if we increase the number of these little fat-burning engines in our body, it's like flipping a switch, allowing us to burn more fat on autopilot every day. It sounds like a fat loss miracle where we put in very minimal effort for a massive return. But let's add a little bit more context to this, because here's what Lane Norton has got to say.
You're activating brown fat. That's great if you're a rodent and you have large pads of brown fat. Human beings, however, don't really have that much brown fat, and it doesn't seem to make a big difference when they activate it.
So the cold exposure is doing exactly what Huberman said, but the current data shows it has an extremely small impact on the actual number of calories we burn per day. And this context is crucial for understanding exactly what's worth our time. Because when we see things like this from this cryotherapy center in Valencia, California, where they claim that you'll burn 500 to 800 calories in 3 minutes, that's supposedly equivalent to a 40 to 60-minute run at a 10-minute mile pace. And they even have the cheek to compare it to burning off 4 Krispy Kreme donuts. Now, we know how human behavior works. People will just think, I spent 3 minutes torturing myself in that cryo chamber, and I just burned off 4 donuts worth of calories. So I can treat myself a little. So people feel justified in having 2 donuts because they just burned off 4, and then they wonder why they're not losing weight or they're getting fatter. What a scam. And when you actually dive into the research, most of these calorie burning claims come from this one extreme study, where they had participants immersed in freezing cold water for 3 hours a day. These people were genuinely close to hypothermia, being purposefully kept on the edge, and their bodies burned an extra 500 calories per day. But unless you have that combination of 3 hours a day and a whole medical team around you to monitor you, it's not exactly realistic. And I remember experiencing something very similar when I first moved to Michigan, getting lost in the woods and freezing my nuts off with these wild turkeys. Even though we've clearly established that the fat burning benefits of the cold are very small, there are second order effects that can lead to much greater fat loss, explained by no other than Huberman himself, commenting on Lane Norton's video. To summarize, he basically says that cold exposure gives us a massive boost in these hormones that affect our mood, our motivation, and our energy. And this is not a little small thing to take lightly. It's an epic combination that puts us in the right frame of mind. It ramps up our mood, energy, and our focus, making us super motivated to stay on top of our health and fitness, work out, and eat well. And the best part? This hormonal effect can last for several hours afterwards, taking us right through the morning up to lunch. However, now we know that we need to ditch the idea that sitting in a cryo chamber or a freezing cold ice bath is going to burn a load of calories. So let's talk protocols so you can get the hormone effects and get the second order fat loss. Here's a 3-step plan to get that hormonal cascade flowing for you. Step 1. The data shows it has to be cooler than 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius. If it's any warmer, you won't get that awesome hormone boost. And a simple way to measure this, that cold setting on your shower, it should make you take one of those deep breaths. You know, that involuntary gasp reflex. Step 2. You need a minimum minimum of 11 minutes per week. So start by turning your shower cold at the end for 2 minutes per day. And no cheating. None of that quick dipping in and out. You have to stick it out for a full 2 minutes in a row. Step 3. As your body gets used to the cold, your hormone boost will decrease. So over time, you'll either need to make the water cooler or stay in longer to maintain the benefits. Now, this is super easy to implement. Just turn your shower cold for that last 2 minutes. And even though it's a little bit intense at first, you're going to get used to it very quickly. And even though those direct fat loss benefits are minimal, we just can't overlook how impactful it is to kickstart your day in a great mood for several hours. It just sets you up with this chain reaction of positive decisions for your health and fitness. And because of this, I'm going to solidly place cold showers in the B tier. And if you're interested in getting lean without the gym bro routine, make sure to subscribe for more game-changing tips. Now we're moving on to one of YouTube's favorite scientific sources of fitness information, Thomas DeLauer. Since he dropped an incredible 100 pounds, he's been a massive advocate of fasting because it played a huge part in his own journey. He even promotes fasts that are 24 hours or longer on his channel. And with fasting, the concept is simple. You're not eating, so you automatically create a ginormous calorie deficit. So let's explore exactly why Thomas is against the traditional approach of continuous dieting, and what's his rationale behind prolonged fasting to shake things up.
What they found is during that 3-week caloric deficit, they ended up shrinking their resting metabolic rate by 266 calories, 108 of which was from what's called adaptive thermogenesis. They ended up slowing down their metabolism and having a 5% reduction in skeletal muscle mass. This happened in literally 3 weeks.
So Thomas points out that even over a short period of just 3 weeks, being in a consistent calorie deficit could lower our metabolism. And the main issue here is that most people diet this way, right? Whether you're meticulously tracking your calories and macros, or you're going all in on something strict like the carnivore diet, or you're simply following a simple protocol like the 16-8 intermittent fasting method. Each one involves reducing your calorie intake every day. So eventually you'll hit that 3-week mark like he mentions, where your metabolism starts to slow down. But don't worry, there's a solution.
Whereas when we look at this British Journal of Nutrition study, we see, well, relatively infrequent longer fasts will actually increase the metabolism.
That's very interesting.
So with 3 non-consecutive day 24-hour fasts, there were improvements in how the body utilized glucose, but there weren't these issues with metabolic slowdown.
So instead of being in a consistent mild famine for 3 weeks or more, we want to cycle between states of feast and famine, which can tank our metabolic rate quickly. And this approach seems to align better with our natural physiology. One method Thomas suggests is incorporating a 24-hour fast. Now, going for 24 hours without eating might sound a little intense, but here's a simple way to do it without feeling overwhelmed. Just stop eating on Sunday night at 6 p.m. and don't eat again until Monday night at 6 p.m. Essentially, you wake up on Monday, you go about your day, and you kick off your week with a super productive day. Then you just enjoy your evening meal at 6 p.m. So while it's a 24-hour fast, it doesn't actually feel like a full chronological day without eating. This way, you experience the benefits of fasting without all the stress. So it doesn't feel that difficult at all. The evidence is strong for this one, it works. And anyone who's been in a deficit for a while knows that feeling of lethargy as your body starts to slow down. And really, a 24-hour fast isn't that tough once you've done it a few times, but it can be challenging to get started, especially since your usual hunger pangs will hit at those normal times that you eat, which can lead to those massive energy dips. Plus, it does take quite a bit of mental fortitude to stick this out consistently, week after week. Personally, I prefer implementing full week diet breaks as they work better for most people. And that's why, unfortunately, I have to put 24-hour fast in the D tier. I just can't see most people making this a consistent part of their weekly routine, even if they do work great. And if you're new here, my name is Tim. I'm a food scientist and personal trainer, now based in Austin, Texas. My expertise is in helping guys hit 10% body fat without letting fitness take over their life. And to kickstart your journey, I've got 2 free guides for you. My rapid fat loss guide to carbohydrate cycling, and my 7 best micro workout challenges so you can get in shape from anywhere. And you can find both of them linked in the description below. Next up, I've got a fellow Englishman also based in Austin, Texas, Chris Williamson. He cut out alcohol for 1,000 days straight. That is no small feat, especially if you're from the UK where drinking is in every single part of the culture. Or as Chris puts it, alcohol is the only drug that if you don't do it, people assume you have a problem. So what does Chris have to say about alcohol and staying lean?
I also found that habits were so much easier to build. Building new habits are hard enough as it is, and I'd made it even harder by being hungover once or twice every couple of weeks.
This is such an important point. When clients come to me and they want to get in shape, they often ask me how can they fit all this fitness and health stuff around their poker nights or their golf weekends. And the answer is simple. There's no issue. You need to have a life. But the problem is, all of these events usually revolve around alcohol. alcohol. But it's not just about all the extra calories from the drinks, or the inevitable food binges that come along with alcohol after your blood sugar crashes. The real problem is that alcohol derails your consistency with your fitness habits. And that's the real problem.
There is no chance that I'm going to do morning meditation or reading when I'm desperately holding on for dear life in the midst of a hangover, let alone if I'm still asleep. By having more stability in my schedule, I was able to build the consistency that I needed to embed these habits.
And as the habit guru James Clear points out, the data shows it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. Though it can range anywhere from 18 to 254 days, but typically it takes upwards of 2 months to establish a habit. So if alcohol is knocking you off track and breaking your habit building efforts in under 2 months, it will seriously hurt your chances of making those habits stick. But this doesn't mean you have to be teetotal forever. It just means it's probably a good idea to go through a period of time without any alcohol. It doesn't need to be 1,000 days, but a significant stretch like 8 to 12 weeks where you cut booze out. Then this allows you to form the habit of selectively including alcohol in your life when you truly want it, on the right occasion. Now, we don't need a ton of scientific data in front of us to understand that the evidence against alcohol is irrefutable. You're going to struggle to get lean if you're regularly drinking. But despite this clear-cut information, people find it incredibly difficult to cut alcohol out. The biggest challenge often comes from social pressures and the numerous social occasions that involve drinking. From family and friends gatherings, brunches, barbecues, to date nights and even work events. Alcohol is a central aspect to so many parts of our lives, making it hard for most people to eliminate it for a while. However, I have seen that once people make the decision to cut out alcohol, it can be surprisingly manageable, because then it's a yes or no decision. It's not about moderation anymore, it's a binary choice. And this pre-made decision really helps with sticking to it. I really want to place this in the S tier because of its effectiveness, but due to the social pressure and that risk of breaking habit streaks, I just can't. It's just not that straightforward to implement for everyone, so it goes in the A tier. Now, let's talk about who most people consider to be the most in shape guy in the world. Chris Bumstead. While we obviously all don't need to get as lean as him, there are some obvious lessons that we can take away, and one of the biggest is setting a deadline for something that is very uncomfortable. This doesn't mean that you have to compete in bodybuilding and get on stage in some budgie smugglers. It can be as simple as setting a date to send a shirtless photo to your inner circle to keep you accountable, showcasing your day 1 to your day 90 physical transformation. The key here is accountability. Having this concrete deadline helps keep you focused and committed, pushing you to stick with your goals and make real progress. When bodybuilders like Bumstead prepare for their competitions, they often start with body fat percentages that are not very different to the average person. Sure, they might have some special supplements to assist them, but the process is not any different. They set a goal, they put a date on the calendar, and they relentlessly work towards it. For us everyday folks, this lesson is crucial. People often procrastinate, endlessly searching for the best workout plan or the perfect nutrition approach. But the truth is, just starting and committing to a deadline is a super powerful approach. It's a classic example of Parkinson's law. The work expands to fill the time allotted. So to implement this, create the fear of an uncomfortable situation. A great way to do this is by going into the bathroom right now and taking that day 1 photo. Then send it to someone that you trust and set a date to send them the 90-day version. Just knowing that you've made this commitment will be enough to get you started and force you to stay consistent. You've made a commitment now, and often the fear of that stick is more motivating than the desire of the carrot. So set that date and commit. There's no need for any fancy studies or scientific deep dives here. This method is straightforward and effortless to implement, requiring just 2 photos. So there's no ongoing consistency to worry about. However, the mental pressure can be intense and it's definitely not for everyone. For those who thrive under the pressure though, this is a fantastic way to stay on track. This one lands solidly in the B tier, as it makes sure people just get started and don't stop. We all know that mantra, stay hard! And our next example of extreme ways to get in shape comes from none other than David Goggins. Goggins is renowned for his extreme mental fortitude, setting world records for pull-ups and completing ultra marathon. And his approach is straightforward, sheer will and determination, pushing your limits no matter what. It's all about embracing discomfort and never giving in, no matter how tough things get.
I had to invent a guy that didn't exist. I had to invent a guy that can take any pain, any suffering, any kind of judgment.
This is some intense stuff. But when you know Goggins' upbringing and understand he's trying to lose 100 pounds, it all starts to make sense.
If it was raining outside 3 o'clock in the morning, if it was snowing, the first instinct is don't go out there and do shit. My instinct was, we gotta go out there. Anything that was horrible in my life that I normally say no, that was inhumane to most people, I had to go do it. And I started callousing my mind at this point in my life. and I lost the weight.
Alright, so that's a little bit heavy. As you can tell, he's pulling up some dark demons there. But let's spotlight the positive in this. Goggins shows us that if you do put your mind to something physical that's got an outcome that's possible, nothing can stop you. However, sheer willpower alone, especially if you're treating the process as torturous, it's not going to end well. It often leads to a massive rebound of fat gain. That is if you don't injure yourself or make yourself sick first. So how do we apply this in real life? Goggins' method is great for getting started, especially if you need that initial boost of activation energy to form a routine and stop making excuses. But beyond that, it's just not a balanced approach and is not sustainable in the long run. So this extreme method earns a place in the E tier. I've seen too many people start strong with this approach, only to give up completely after constantly trying to implement it and failing repeatedly. So you can get lean with these strategies, or like the famous bodybuilders say, it's not steroids, it's just hard work and dedication. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. And for more coaching tips, watch my video here.